there was ever drama on this channel, do you know what it would be? Holly plays her PS4 too much. Seriously, right when there's a new game that's out, hundreds of hours of reading time are just swept away. Hi everyone, my name is Holly, and in today's video I am going to be showing you all of the books that I read in May. So this month was a roller coaster for me. In fact, I have some DNFs in this pile, a very horrendous DNF I should say, but I also found some new favorites. And I should mention that my May TBR video was of me randomly choosing my books with a random number generator, and I feel like that kind of messed with my brain. You'll see how it all went. So the very first book that I read that was randomly chosen for me was King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. So I went into this with a lot lower expectations than usual because I really didn't like Six of Crows. In fact, I almost DNF'd that book, but I really liked the Shadow and Bone trilogy. But thankfully, I really enjoyed this one, despite some of the problems I had with it. I'll get to that salt in a moment. I feel like the main element that I am so magnetized to within the Grishaverse are the Volcra, which are the creatures that dwell in the fold, that feast on human flesh. My dark fantasy heart clings to this, and that's what the plot is kind of built upon in this book. Nikolai plus the fold plus the Volcra is a recipe that I could eat up all freaking day by the mouthful. Okay, including Nikolai in the recipe is a bit of a stretch because he's definitely not the hero of his own story. After reading this for a while, I came to that realization. The heart of the plot might be centered around him, but he's definitely a secondary character. I began to accept that fact while reading this, and I feel like it helped with my enjoyment of the story. Crossing my fingers though that book 2 has more of his snarky perspective. One more thing, I am kind of disappointed by that ending, which is an absolute shocker to me. You would think with what happened I would love like everyone else did, but not only did I see it coming from a mile away, but it also just doesn't make sense. The characters' reactions to it and their decisions toward it are really dumb. The whole time during the ending I was like, no, you guys wouldn't be reacting that way. You would all be freaking out. But they were like, meh, this is cool, I guess. All in all, I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I really wish that we got more of the snarkiness that we loved from Nikolai, but I did have that like addictiveness while I was reading it, so I'm highly anticipating that sequel. I have been looking forward to this one all month because it's the last book I need to turn around. All of these are read, and now this one is read, and it's so nice seeing that beautiful golden spine. Look at that. So satisfying. So let's go ahead and move on to the favorite of the month. And this wasn't even picked for me in my May TBR video. I just randomly decided to read it, and I'm so glad that I did. It was The 10,000 Doors of January by Alex E. Haro. This book comes out on September 10th, and it revived my month. And it even has 2 elements that I normally don't like to read. One of them is it's a historical fiction, fantasy, but the historical fiction element to it, I don't read historical fiction. Another is it's kind of a magical realism slash like lyrical writing kind of story, and that's another thing that I normally don't like to read, but it surprised the fork out of me. This book takes place in the early 1900s, and it's following a very young girl named January who's extremely imaginative, and she lives with Mr. Locke, who is a billionaire archaeologist. Her father works for him, and he is not around very much. He is constantly traveling, which leads to January getting into a lot of mischief and exploring. One day, January is exploring the Egyptian room, and she stumbles upon a chest, and when she opens it, she finds a very weird book called The 10,000 Doors, and it states that bending the physical laws of the universe is possible. So we have portals here. This book explores the idea that you can open up a door and just walk through it and end up in a totally different universe. It took me one freaking page to realize this book was going to devour all of my spare time, and I read it so quickly. And the reason why I picked it up is because it looks short, but actually it's over 400 pages. Most of the book is like really long, big paragraphs, which is another element I don't normally enjoy. The story is so unique, and I know you guys are gonna say, but Holly, like, magical doors has been done since like freaking Narnia. True, but no. This book stands out to me so much because of the way this author handled it. It delves into the origins of storytelling, and its foundation is built upon like history, and I believe this author is even a historian. I ended up giving this one 5 out of 5 stars. I cannot praise it enough, and I really hope you guys are able to pick it up when it comes out in September. It was honestly a life-changing experience for me. The next book I decided to pick up was Ace of Shades by Amanda Foody. This is a YA fantasy that I have been highly anticipating and wanting to pick up for a really long time, and I don't know why I never did, but one night while I was just like longingly staring at my bookshelves, it spoke to me and I decided to pick it up, and I'm glad that I did. So actually our story begins on the north side of New Rains, which there is a really cool map of, and it's a city that is known for its decrepit buildings and corrupt people. It is full of casinos and gangs and just really shady activity in general. I mean, the place is called City of Sin for a reason. Our main character, whose name is Insulta, she has just arrived in the city in search for her mother who has gone missing, and she has no idea where not to go, so she immediately finds herself meeting a leader to a gang. His name is Levi. And this is where our story kind of kicks off and leads us discovering so many different locations within New Rains. I personally really loved In's character development. She enters the city being very naive and very innocent, but it doesn't take long for the city to corrupt her. Or is the city giving her the opportunity to discover her true self? I actually really enjoyed how quickly she learned how to become tough and to defend herself. In fact, she gets a job at a casino in this, being a dancer, and it was just so interesting and fun to read. Some of the best aspects in this book, I feel like, is the world and how the magic is handled. It's all about split talents. So say a character has a talent for dancing and they also have a talent for sewing, and it's two things they're really good at, but some talents don't mix very well. I mean, the main form of currency in this world are called volts, and they're basically like orbs with electricity inside of them. I mean, hello, Nikola Tesla in the house. I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars. This is definitely a character-driven story. There's not a whole lot that happens plot-wise, but I am mostly here for these characters. You know, I feel like I need to leave the DNFs for last, just so I can, you know, keep myself upbeat and happy. So the next 2 books I read were actually graphic novels, and the first one was Rat Queens Volume 6 by Curtis J. Weeb. I have been a long-term fan of the series, and even though it's been tough sticking around because of how absurd the story got, I'm glad that I did, because I feel like this volume went back to its roots of volume 1 and 2, which I freaking loved. This volume in particular really focuses on our battle maidens having to deal with villages being raided by orcs. I honestly feel like it can only get better from here, because I heard that the next volume is going to be created by a actual creative team, so we'll see how that goes. I ended up giving this one, yet again, 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. That is a good improvement compared to like the last 2 or 3 volumes where I gave them like 2 or 3 stars. And the last book that I have here that I actually fully completed was Middle West by Scotty Young and George Corona, another graphic novel by Scotty Young. He has been pumping these out like crazy lately, and like, what a time to be alive. He is my favorite graphic novel artist and writer, and I'll be honest, I feel like this graphic novel is going to be the best one that I read all year. This is kind of like a urban fantasy, I would say, and it follows our main character Abel, who is a young boy who lives in this town called Farmington, and he lives with his very abusive father. One day Abel gets involved with shoplifting with his friends, which he didn't even want to participate in anyways, but unfortunately his father ends up finding out and kicks him out of the house. Now this kid is like 12 years old, so keep that in mind. But Abel decides to defend himself and to speak his true feelings, and that does not end up going well. His father gets so angry that he turns into a raging storm. No, seriously, he turns into a freaking tornado, and he ends up destroying the whole town while also chasing Abel and his talking companion friend, who's a fox, and chases them out of town, not unscathed though, unfortunately, because Abel's father marks him physically on the chest. That will change his whole life forever, because it ends up giving him very strange powers, just like his father. The world that this story is set in is so interesting. It's verging on the edge of steampunk. There's robots, there's these like really strange creatures that resemble mice and rabbits like in our world, but instead they have like 3 eyes and like 4 ears, or their anatomy is off or something. There's huge machines that power the buildings. In fact, most of the buildings and the houses are kind of like a hodgepodge of junk and scraps. Here's some examples of the artwork. So it's very bright, but then we also have some panels that are really dark and spooky. So like right here, our characters actually stumble upon a carnival. I love this page so much. It's actually the very first page that you read, so no spoilers here, but it's so pretty. I love this world so much. I ended up giving this 5 out of 5 stars, and even though that cliffhanger at the end totally hurt my feelings, I am so looking forward to the next volume. In fact, I feel like I will even be keeping up with the issues. Alrighty, so the next book I'm going to be talking about is not a DNF. I'm currently working on it, and that is The Red Knight by Miles Cameron. This was randomly chosen for me for May, and I am really enjoying this, but holy crap, is it time consuming. It's really hard to explain. Like, it's kind of on the denser side. Like, it's not hard to read whatsoever. It's not really confusing. The only thing I'm having a hard time with is that it follows like 30 different perspectives. I actually have 4 perspectives that I keep getting mixed up here on my laptop, and those are Gavin, Gaston, Gawain, and Gerald. I keep getting those 4 people mixed up, and it is hurting me. But I am really enjoying this. It's just taking a lot of my energy. Alrighty, on to the dreaded DNFs. In fact, let's just rip that band-aid right off and start with the most hurtful one. Gideon the Knight by Tamsin Muir. Like I said, this book actually put me in a really bad state of mind. I can't get myself to read past page 60. All I have seen is people just praising this book, giving it 5 stars, and there's little old me DNFing it. It's actually like made me question if I'm too much of a critical reader or if I have bad taste in books. This book reminds me of the Ruin of Kings incident, published by Tor as well, and I don't know if Tor just hypes these books up and it's just like their downfall, or I don't know. The Ruin of Kings was so convoluted and confusing, and that's what I'm having trouble with in this book. It's very convoluted in my opinion, and you might not find it like that, but the writing just doesn't mesh with me. I find it very clunky. I'm definitely in the minority for this one for sure, because I know so many of you who are excited to read this, and I want you to still be excited. But for like my mental state, I need to put this book down and just accept the fact that it might not be for me, and that's think that's what I'm gonna do. And those were all of the books that I read and DNF'd in May. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, go ahead and give this video a big thumbs up because that helps me out so much. And don't forget to subscribe. I upload videos every single week. And until we meet again, happy reading.